Hi, this is Nahid Kazaza, and I'd like to welcome you to our video series, Quick and Easy Resume and Cover Letters. This is video number 5 out of 5 videos. The first 4 we talked about your resume. In this one, we're going to talk about cover letters. What we're going to do is talk about how sometimes you don't need a cover letter, and then for the situations that you do need a cover letter, we'll give you different examples. For example, there's several different situations where you might want to send a cover letter in with a resume submission. One might be in response to an ad, or maybe you met somebody at a networking event and they said, hey, send your resume to me. You may decide that you want to send your resume unsolicited into an organization to see if you can get some kind of response. Or perhaps you want to do an email campaign, and we'll talk a little bit about the difference between email introductions versus formal letters. Then there are some situations where no letter at all is required. So let's get started. The first situation we'll address is when you're responding to an ad. And the best way to think about this is to put yourself in the shoes of the person who wrote the ad. The first thing you should know is that they had to pay for their ad. And they probably had to pay by the word, which means they're going to try in as little space as possible to put the most relevant things in there that they want. So you can bet that everything they wrote in their ad is really important to them when it comes to who they hire. The second thing to keep in mind is that what's normally going to happen to someone who places an ad is they will get a flood of resumes back, and many of the resumes will not actually be a match at all for the job. So the two feelings they're going to experience is, number one, overwhelm, because they have so many resumes to go through and they don't have the time to go through them. And the second thing is concern, because they're not sure that they're going to be able to pick out from all these resumes the people who actually did read their ad and are a good fit. So what you can do in this situation is use a cover letter to make it really clear up front that you're one of those people who read the ad, took it very seriously, and you're a great fit. And this is how you do it. You start by giving them context. Dear hiring manager, I'm responding to your ad, and you say where you saw the ad and when. And why do you do that? Because they probably placed a lot of different ads. So it's very helpful to them to know which one you're responding to. Then what you do is you take good care to bullet out the most important things that they asked for in their ad. So in this example, the person asked for some legal experience and some detail orientation. I needed to keep it small, but you could do maybe 3 up to 5 different bullets if that's how many they had in their ad. For each bullet, what you want to do is write the things from your resume or the things from your background that are the most relevant to that bullet. That shows that you're a fit. And even if you don't have one of the bullets, you can say, well, I don't have specifically what you're looking for here. I have this other thing which is really close. That's being honest and upfront, and it, again, still shows that you could possibly be a match. You might not be 100%, but you're a good 90 or 80% match, and that's still worth taking you out of the pile for a closer look. So at the end, you want to have a paragraph that gives you your contact information and just says, please call me to set up a time to meet at your convenience or at our convenience or whenever. The great thing about this is instead of just submitting a resume to an ad, you're taking a little bit of extra time. You're showing them exactly how your experience fits, what they're looking for. You alleviate their concerns, and you almost guarantee that you will get pulled out of the initial pile of resumes for the second look, and your resume will actually get read. So that's why this is so powerful. Let's look at a different example. Let's say that you ran into somebody at a networking event, and they said, hey, I have a friend who might be hiring or might not, but I'd love to send you her resume or send her your resume. So you want to follow the same format, but you don't have as much information. But you do have a couple things that you can use. First of all, you have your memory of the meeting you had with this person and everything that they said. So you might want to write that down as soon as you get a moment to write it down so you don't forget it. Then what you do is, again, right at the top you give them context. We met at the chamber meeting last night and you had asked that I forward you my resume. So you talk about where you met, what they said in the conversation that prompted you to send the resume. That gives them the context. Then you may not have a lot of guidance from your conversation as to what to highlight, but here you get to choose your own things to highlight. In this particular case, it says, we met at the chamber meeting and you had asked that I forward you my resume in case the friend you mentioned in advertising is looking for a designer. So the only two things I can pull out of here is designer and advertising, a designer with experience in advertising. So what I did is I put a bullet here that shows that I'm a designer and that I have a lot of experience in that. And then in advertising, I put my agency experience, that I have some both on the inside and the outside. I don't have to say a lot about any of it, but what I'm doing is putting a couple highlights there that are my best guess of what they might think are important. And then I wrap it up the same way. Thank you so much for forwarding the attached resume, and please feel free to contact me. And I didn't put it here, but you'll for sure want to put your contact information. The other thing that's important is if you're meeting someone at a networking event, you want to make it really easy for them to just take whatever you send them an email and forward it on. So it's good to say, thank you so much for forwarding the attached resume. Remember, if they have to put effort, like calling their friend first before they send it on, they might not do it just because they've got a million things to do and it's going to take time. But if you say, oh, just forward it and your letter looks perfect and you've got the resume attached, then in 1 minute they can hit the forward button and say, met this person at a networking event, thought you might be interested, and send it on, and it will get into the other person's hands. All right, let's talk about another example. Let's say you're not having a lot of luck responding to ads. You want to accelerate your progress, and you want to send some resumes out to potential bosses. I have a whole class on this called Pipeline Interviewing, and it's a special methodology for getting in what I call the pipeline of managers who haven't decided that they have a job opening yet. So there's a lot to say about that, which I won't say on this video, but it is a type of strategy where you'll need to send your resume to people who don't know you and who've never asked you to send their resume. So you need a way to send a resume, and you need something to say in your cover letter or your cover email. So in this case, I have a formula. And the formula is that you start with an intriguing question where you ask them about a problem that they might have. So essentially, when you're doing this unsolicited, you're really a solution shopping for a problem. And so you want to ask them right up front about their problem. Why do you do that? Because people are always thinking about the problems they're trying to solve or the goals they're trying to achieve. So that's what's relevant to them in any given moment. So if you send an unsolicited email to somebody, they're only going to pay attention to it if it's relevant to a goal that they're currently trying to achieve or a problem they're currently trying to solve. So you have to right up front in your cover letter talk about a problem that you think they might be likely to have. This may take some research. When we do pipeline interviewing, there's a whole bunch of pre-work that we do. So right now I'm not talking about the pre-work, I'm just talking about the example cover letter so you have the example. You want to bring out the problem that they might have. You want to give them 3 good reasons to contact you and schedule a meeting. So these are letters that you're sending out to ask for a meeting, to ask if it's okay if you stop by and meet them. It's kind of like a cold call. So you need to say right up front, do you have this problem? This is who I am. This is why I'm writing. I would really like to meet with you for just 10 minutes so that I can bring you some information on who I am and how I might solve your problem. And then you have room for bullets again. And these bullets should be three probably compelling reasons why, if they happen to have the problem that you talked about in the top sentence, then these are reasons why you are the best solution for that problem. And then you give them the contact information, and a lot of these you will never hear from. But every once in a while someone will be really intrigued, and it's a great way to actually take control of your job search. Okay, so we call this a request for a pipeline interview, and this is a little bit longer letter, so I had to use a whole slide here to show it, but this is an example. Dear Mr. Johnson, Have you ever felt the need for more resources and wished you had people you could call immediately to get help and move forward more efficiently? I find that this is kind of a good default problem because a lot of managers are really frustrated at how long it takes to hire somebody when they need someone and how long it takes to find someone when they need one. So can you imagine if you're a busy hiring manager and you need some extra help and you already know of someone who can help you? So that's the problem you're appealing to in the pipeline interviewing process. I'm an experienced website developer. So in this example, the person is the company that you're sending it to is a company that does websites and you're a website developer. I'm an experienced website developer. I'm available on contract or full-time. Here's some of my experience. I'm well-versed doing these different templates and working in these different languages. I understand both the business and the design side, and I've worked both on contract and internally, so I'm comfortable in both environments. So I come up with my best guess at what would 3 great bullets be, and then I say whether or not you have a current need. I would love to stop by and introduce myself briefly and show you some samples of my work. If you decide we're a good fit, I could be available in your pipeline as a resource whenever things get busy. So this is what I call the pipeline interviewing process. Now, if you get a bite and someone invites you in, you handle this completely differently than you would handle a normal interview. This is called a pipeline interview, and it's one that you run because you requested the meeting. You have to run the agenda for the meeting. You have to ask the questions. You have to take the burden of how it's all going to go. So there's a little bit more training on pipeline interviewing that you could get from us if you decide to use this, but it's nice to have this in our cover letter overview so you have an example and a template for your letter. Okay, so when do you hire a coach? We've talked about resumes. We've talked about cover letters. All the information that I have on these are summarized in these 5 videos. So if you watch the 5 videos, you're going to get a lot of information on how to do what you need to do to be effective in terms of writing great resumes and really great cover letters to go with them. The important thing to think about is when are you going to get stuck? If you're going to get stuck, usually you need help getting unstuck. So that's when you hire a coach. Typically, what I've noticed is people find themselves procrastinating. That's like the red flag. It just tells you that you're afraid of something or you have some inner conflict going on and you may not be fully aware of it. So when you're working with me on coaching calls, I can help you find out how you're getting in your own way, but even more importantly, I can help you figure out how to resolve the internal conflicts so that you can move forward. Sometimes it's as simple as finding a different approach that makes you a lot less anxious and makes it a little bit easier for you to go through the transition process without having to be as afraid of rejection, for example. Another time when it's great to hire a coach is when you say, hey, you know, I'm not working right now. It's the first time I haven't been working in years. And what if I don't want to do the same kind of work I did before? What if I want to create a whole new chapter in my life? That is a great time to hire a coach because we do tons of exercises that help you get more clear on your values and think about what kind of a life you want to build and how your career might fit into that and what kind of a career might be way more fulfilling to you than things that you've done in the past. So sometimes a big kick in the gut, like getting laid off unexpectedly, can be a huge blessing in disguise. Another time to hire a coach would be when you're thinking, wow, maybe this is the time that I could actually start my own business. I did that. I started this business when I got pregnant, and working in a job for somebody else didn't seem as flexible to me. It felt better for me to have a job that I could work at from home while also having small children and being a mom and having a little bit more flexible time there. So there are a lot of types of businesses. You can start little lifestyle businesses or you can start bigger businesses. And when you're starting a business, that can be really emotionally draining and really scary, and there's a lot of information you need. So it's great to have a coach then. So how do you find a coach or a support group? Well, if you're looking for something free because you're scared about money, the first place to look at is if you go to church. Your church usually has something. If you file for unemployment at EDD or some government office, usually they have programs that are free that can help you. a lot of those, maybe the churches work on the emotional side, but a lot of those work on the same stuff that I just gave you, which is the tangible stuff that you need to do. If you'd like to shop for a coach, keep in mind that almost every coach does a free consultation on the phone. I do it, and most of my compadres, compatriots do it. Most of my other coaches I know will do a free consultation on the phone. Once, when I was shopping for a coach, I picked 5 coaches, and I did the consultation with all 5 of them, and each one of those was kind of like a coaching session. So for free, I got 5 coaching sessions, and I really got a lot of clarity on what I wanted to do. I did choose one of those coaches, and she ended up being great for me, but I wouldn't have had to. And so sometimes just going through the process of shopping for a coach, even if you decide not to get a coach, can give you clarity. As far as Aspire programs, the best thing to do is look at the Aspire website. The address is right here, www.aspire.com. We have a lot of programs on the website, and our approach is pretty much what I've shared with you, but we like to deal with the emotional stuff. Like, I like to deal with people that are stuck and don't know what their next step are, because that's my specialty. I can help people get unstuck. So that's how you would find a coach. Now, before we close off, though, today, and I'll come back to this slide right before I end, but I just wanted to make sure I dealt with all of the questions that I said I was going to deal with here. So I have my funny little cover letter here, and I said that I would talk about situations where no letter is required. There are most situations I would say no cover letter is required. The situations I shared with you in this video are situations where your cover letter could give you an extra boost. But there may be times when it wouldn't. For example, if it's just too much reading, if you're giving your letter to a recruiting agency, perhaps, you don't need a cover letter. Or if you're bringing your resume along with you to an interview or to a networking meeting, you might not need a cover letter. And then the other question that I promised that I would address is the difference between email introductions versus formal letters. In my opinion, most people are very comfortable with email right now. It's very rare that people use formal letters, but because it's so rare, sometimes you can give yourself an edge by sending stuff formally in the mail. In other words, everyone else is just emailing it. You can email it, but then as an added bonus, you can also send it in the mail, and that can just be an added personal touch. Along with your thank you notes, that can be an added personal touch as well. So I think I've covered all the points that I said I'm going to cover. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and if you've watched all 5, for watching all 5. I hope you visit the Aspire website. I came back to the slide, and here's the address again, just in case you're not on it right now. You may be watching this on YouTube or something, but it's www.aspire.com. We have tons of tools on this website, and there's lots of videos of me on this website talking about how I work. If you have any questions, or you're stuck, or you're thinking about hiring a coach, feel free to call me and schedule a consultation. We have programs at all income levels. So just because you might assume that coaching is really expensive, we have many programs that are affordable. So no matter what your budget, or even if you're not sure if you want to hire a coach, I'm still happy to talk to you. Feel free to schedule a consultation using the contact form on the website, and I look forward to talking with you if you decide to do it. Thanks again for everything. Good luck in your transition, and we'll talk with you soon.